It's the Daily Talk Show, episode 881.
And today we've got a special guest, the co-founder of Thank You, Daniel Flynn. Welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, thank you so much. I feel to be number 881. That's incredible.
I mean, we've been following everything that you've been doing for ages. You came back from New Zealand. How long did you spend in New Zealand?
We're there for about a year and a half. So it's really, it was a well-needed break / launch and rethink of the whole Thank You model.
Yeah, Tommy and I always talk about living abroad, what it's going to do for us. It's, if we were to live somewhere else, we'd change our life and, be better humans. What's the reality of actually moving? What sort of perspective did you gain?
Well, look, I think your hypothesis is it's real. Like we did we become better humans? Maybe we definitely rethought things. I think there's something about when you physically, I don't know about you guys, but like when I fly, if I get in a plane, which is a distant memory now, but you just have a different perspective. Moving country or city, you get out of what was comfortable and then you start to reanalyze, and I think for myself and co-founder Justine, who's my wife, like we had a real rethink of us as individuals, as leaders, as a family, the whole company. And you know what, the fruit was really good. And it was good to enjoy some time over in New Zealand.
Well, as much as, there are ideas that you're having. A friend of mine, he's a motivational guy and a motivational speaker, and he says it's not a geographical problem, it's a you problem. And so I don't listen to that. I like to think that traveling does bring something out of me. But just on the idea thing, that is a concept. I'll move overseas and things will be different. You guys have had a pretty large-scale idea of late that you're currently in the middle of. Run us through what idea you've had and where you're up to date.
Yeah, cool. Well, look, and a lot of this came from New Zealand. We looked at what are we good at, what are we not good at, and we've really
My mate doesn't know anything. He does not know anything. I'll send him this after it.
So look, we've launched a bold idea. It's called No Small Plan, and essentially it's a call out to the world to say, hey, could you help get Thank You, this social enterprise model, to the world? We've invited 2 groups of people. One of those groups just happens to be the biggest product companies on the planet. So P&G, Unilever, we sent them literally a 2x1 meter invitation. It's a giant crate by a 24-foot truck at their head offices saying, hey, this is an invitation to change the world. And we're inviting them to help make and distribute Thank You products globally. We've also invited 9 of their nearest competitors. We just need one partner to help. And then we've called out to consumers to say, hey, would you use your voice in this moment? Post 4 words, I'm in AU, tag P&G, tag Unilever. The hashtag is Thank You to the world. And it's this whole idea of us as consumers using our voice, big business using what they have, global manufacturing capabilities, and together taking a social idea to global scale, and we hope taking us humanity one giant step closer to the end of extreme poverty.
You guys are a leader in social enterprises. What have you learnt about the social enterprise model since you began the journey?
Yeah, look, I think we've learned that it's important. The world needs it. COVID has shown us even more so that fact. Right now charity donations are down. So, honestly, charities are in a tailspin. People aren't giving. And in the sector we're in, focused on extreme poverty, it's gone from bad to worse. So there are 250 million people on the brink of famine. And if you think about that reality, plus charities who they're there to kind of help solve that, they're down on donations. At the same time, Thank You's up. We're at an all-time high in sales because we sell hand sanitizer and hand wash, and consumers are still consuming. We just released some numbers on that we've just given a further $10 million to our impact partners from a few months sales, literally during the pandemic.
Wow.
And that to us is like, hey, at a time when the world's in a tough spot, here's a model that works. And it's not easy, I'll be honest. Going to New Zealand, we sat back and we went, we've gone for over a decade now, and we're at nearly a burnout. Justine, she ended up having 3 months off. Doctors said to her, your health's not in a good spot. You need to have a break or your body will stop. And she had a break and her body stopped. So she had 3 months in bed and then like a 9-month recovery journey. I was pretty close. I ended up having a few months off, and we just went, man, what's going on? And we realized that social enterprise is a cool concept, but in our case, we're head to head with the biggest companies on the planet, and it is tough. And so whilst the model's important and needed, it is a really tough battle out there against some pretty big machines. And so we got to work rethinking how we'll get to market, not changing the mission, but kind of flipping the game on its head. And there enters No Small Plan.
Getting to a flat spot, especially when it translates in your body's health. How did you guys pick yourselves back up and actually say this is worth continuing doing what we're doing?
Yeah, I think there was some pretty deep soul searching. I think there was, anyone who's started anything or worked to make an idea a reality knows it is not easy. It always, you think it will, how hard could it be? And then you basically live out how hard it could be. And we did. And we got smashed. Like, we're pretty open about it. The bigger we got, it's like the harder we got hit. Which in part is almost flattery. I bumped into a kind of a CEO of a very big competitor, and I made kind of a joke. I was like, so it's getting a bit harder to launch these days. And he's like, yeah, well, when Thank You first started, no one probably took it too seriously. But now, it works and people back it, and the industry probably handles it different. And in one sense, it was a compliment. In another sense, it was hard. It's hard to live through that. We launched into the baby category a couple of years ago in Australia. You think nappies or diapers, depending what part of the world you're listening from, you think that's a fun category. It's all out war. And it really was. And we went up against some pretty big business. And how do you rethink? Well, we saw the results, what worked. We saw what didn't. And then we analyzed what didn't work. And we asked the question, is there another way? And yeah, there are other ways. And so I think, for Justine and I, we are moved by two things. One is the mission, the purpose, and that's deep and it drives us. So that helps. And then also vision, like being able to see a future that could work. And I think once we had a bit of rest, we really went back to why did we start this? And then we had this vision of there is a way we could pull it off. And we met industry experts and we told them the plan. Here's what we're going to do. And they're like, that'll never work. Like, you are asking the biggest companies on the planet to basically make a new box of partnership that they don't currently do. And that was true. Big companies that we're approaching usually acquire brands. Thank You can't be owned. It would take away from the entire model we have of all for our impact. But I think when you are led by a mission and purpose and you've got a vision, I don't know, we're kind of the people that can't unsee that. And so we just go, well, we'll go all in. And that's what we're doing currently.
When did you come up with the idea of No Small Plan, and did it take much to build the confidence to have another crack?
Yeah, look, it did. The plan has been worked and reworked for at least 2.5 years. In fact, it was planned to launch next year, and then COVID happened, and at first we thought delay the plan, and then we saw extreme poverty go from bad to worse, and sales go from good to great. So we're like, bring the plan forward. Like, the world needs it now. But for the last 2.5 years, we've been looking at what wasn't working, what was working. We discovered that as a brand, we were able to over-index and get results that literally are market leading. But the easiest way I could put it is it's like we could launch ideas and get buy-in to those ideas like few other brands could, but sustaining those ideas against some of the biggest machines out there, that's where we would continue to kind of hit a ceiling. And so we thought, well, imagine if we did what we're kind of best in class at, and we partnered with a global manufacturer who's really good at what they do together. Actually, together, there's no model like that currently in the market. And then we started to play that forward and think, this could change everything. So a couple of years ago, we were like, we're there. And then we spent time shopping it around, getting advice, trying to think through how would we approach this, how would we do it, privately, publicly, all of the things in between. And then we built a plan and spent time refining it. And to be honest, we would have liked another year, but we COVID changed the world in a bad way and maybe in a good way, and we just decided to go all in now.
You've got an epic promo video describing what mission you guys are on. I mean, it's quite warm in my house, and I was shivering. I was fucking moved, mate. It was awesome.
Thanks,
at the end, you say this awesome line. You say you're probably asking, "What if it doesn't work?" And then you ask the question back, "What if it does?" I just love that, because it's everything in this world has started with a concept in your mind. I mean, is that a question, though, that you ask yourself, what if it doesn't work at the start? And how have you translated it to get the action and in moving forward that you have got at the moment?
Yeah, look, it's a powerful question. What if it does work? It's also a frustrating question for some people, because you're the kid that's like,
well,
well,
they asked they asked a different question. Answer my bloody question, mate.
Yeah, and like I think at Thank You, we will think through an idea and play out the what if it doesn't work, as in how do you remove risk and how do we think of that? So you can't, like, naivety and beginner's mindset is part of the secret, and the other part is learning and just being like relentless on learning. And by learning, I mean, like, we've entered a new type of business partnership model, and this is what we're proposing. It's licensing, it's brand licensing. For those who are familiar with brand licensing, we've discovered that we're creating a new category. We're just going to call it the Thank You license, which is like brand licensing, but a little outside of that box. But the only reason we can even create that, what we would propose as a bit of a new box, is because we learnt about the other one. We learnt how it would work for us and how it wouldn't. We thought through, is this possible? How do we remove risk for partners? And then we started to create it. Now, this is not a complete story. We'll find out in a few weeks if it worked or not. But part of the optimism and the focus on how could this work, that's the Thank You approach. I mean, the world doesn't change until someone imagines it different and then goes all in on that. And that has been what's built Thank You so far. And to be honest, it's the only way forward, because we don't, people are like, is there another Thank You out there that you're just trying to replicate? There isn't. And I don't mean that in a proud way. There just isn't. There are so many organizations we borrow from, like, love how they're doing this, love how they're doing that. But we just don't see what we see in our mind in the market yet. And so that means we think we're going to have to take some pretty creative approaches and continue to ask that question, but what if it does work? And then the follow-up is like, but how could we? How could we make it work? And, a good brainstorm, I think, begins with infinite possibility, not, wow, if it doesn't work, risk, reputation, money, wasted time, investment. Like that leads to the most uninspiring brainstorm session you'll ever have.
There's a bunch of people in Melbourne. We're obviously in lockdown at the moment, but they'll be starting hopefully soon to transition into a new version of normal, where they're going into their office again, having been hermits at home. I guess you've had a version of this being remote in New Zealand, away from your team. What were some of the coping mechanisms or tools that you used when coming back into the workplace to make sure that the team was comfortable and you were comfortable and that you were sort of optimized?
Yeah, I think that there's two things that are really important. One is space. So when you get away, you create space to think, space for ideas, space to discover. And that is so critical. So I think coming back in, one of the challenges with the office and the kind of this idea of the hustle and like, let's go, is you can become very much reaction based or busy based. And you're kind of addicted to this drug of like, if I'm just always busy and I get back to every email in time, then surely this thing will like drop. That's actually not the case. You can answer every single email that ever comes to you. You can turn up to every meeting and completely fail in all of your actual KPIs, like your real success. And so I think space is critical. So when you come back in, it's like, well, how do I keep the space that I got when I was away, when I was working from home? That's part one. But the second part, which almost contradicts it, but it's a balance, is like proximity. So being in New Zealand was great because we got space, but we also got disconnected. And unity, particularly as a team, unity is a very, very, very powerful thing. Like disunity or like two visions. Which I think a good example right now, without getting too political, might be America, right? Two very different views on how the country should be and run, and and that's human nature. But what we're all kind of witnessing is this sort of like so divided that you can't even have a conversation, no one can move forward, and it's kind of like a horror show that we're all watching in on, and hopefully there's a good resolve soon. But I think when that happens in a business, in a startup, it's death. You're paralyzed, you can't move. And so there's something about when you're together, and we've actually found this as a team. We're not in the office right now, we've been remote since March, but we're meeting more regularly than ever on Zoom 3 times a week. We feel more unified, more connected. Unity isn't like same thinking, it's actually diverse thinking, but you're together in that diverse thinking. And so I think sometimes when you create space, you can actually put at risk that incredible like feeling of unity you get as particularly a smaller startup. And so I think when people come back to the new normal, if you can get the balance between space, but also that feeling of, hey, we're united in this vision, mission, that's when you have a really like a well thought through, powerful team.
How's your relationship been with, what may happen in the future and where you are now? And how do you sort of, I mean, COVID for everybody has been that version of, I was planning something, but that's out the window. So, yeah, how do you reconcile the sort of the future and where you want to get to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this disruption that the world's just had and is still going through is, I mean, we're seeing a very dark side of it, extreme poverty. There is a dark side in mental health. There is a dark side in the economic flow and effects and the health flow and effects from this pandemic. And it is, the more you look into that, it is dark and it is heavy, but I think there is also light and there is hope. And it's the hope that we all just discovered you can meet on Zoom. Small realization, but I have never in my life, if you said you'd be doing some kind of global campaign call out thing from your house in a suburb in Melbourne, I would say, no, I have way too much status points with too many airlines and I'll be flying around every minute and I'll be like, but no, the world just changed. And then we discovered that, you can do things differently. And we're all going to have to. And I think that for me is the big realization is we're going to have to do things different. Partnership, I think, is a big part of the future, in part because not everyone can travel as freely. But then I think also, does the world need heaps of replicated businesses or replicated charities or replicated ideas? No. I think the world needs every single one of us to figure out what are we uniquely good at and what have we got to bring, and how do we work with others who've got something to bring too, and through partnership solve the economic crisis and the health crisis and all of the flow and effects, the mental health crisis from this disruption.
What about internal buy-in from your team when you have these big, crazy ideas? I can imagine that there's a bit of selling in that you have to do. Do you have any tips or thoughts on the best way of approaching that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where proximity is really critical. And I've fallen apart on this before, kind of flying in with a big idea and it's like, and I can feel it. And I'm like, oh, hang on a second. I really think it's critical for any point leaders or visionaries to like, yes, you have to be 30,000 feet as you think through your idea. But I think you've also got to be on the front line and connected to that real finger on the pulse with where the day-to-day is at. And if you do that, then I think a team member would have buy-in, because you're not just you haven't got some lofty future thought. You found a way to connect it to today's problems. And then someone who's like more focused on today can almost join your tomorrow thinking. So that's part of it. I think the other part too is just don't share everything at once. If you've got a big idea, like bring it in bit by bit. I often get asked, what's your 10-year plan? I'm not sure if you guys are planning to ask what's our next 5-10 years, but my answer is like, look, we got some big dreams and hopes, but we really focus on today. Like I've kind of got this like cut and paste answer, which is basically me not saying, yeah, we got so many ideas and I'm going to freak you out because I'm just going to share them all. And then you're going to be like, nah, this is nuts.
Was there a time though that you did that? Like, I guess if you look at, Thank You was founded on water bottles, and obviously that you've had a big, change in regards to approaching that. How do you reconcile? Because I even feel it's like things are constantly changing. Like, COVID especially means that, as you said, you might be saying we're doing it next year, and then all of a sudden you're saying, actually, I think it makes sense to be moving this forward. How do you reconcile and sort of communicate your change in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think so big vision's incredibly compelling because it's big. And I think people buy into like, oh, I love a big lofty dream. But then I think being able to show the incremental like steps to get there is critical. Often I've fell apart on that. Justine's been better, others in our team, and we've got a great team now to kind of balance that. But I think people need to see the incremental steps. A, so you know what to do next. B, if a pivot comes and our normal is pivoting, the true north doesn't change. So the big plan and where we're heading and why we're going there, that doesn't change. But how we get there and the steps we take does. And I think how it's about over communication. So when something comes in, you have to dig down to your true north, and then the change you're about to make, how does that better serve the true north? And I think if there's a strong link between the two, I think people will be like, yeah, it's kind of crazy to move our launch forward at a time when the whole world is so disrupted and who knows how it's all going to work. But actually I can see the logic behind it, and I can see it's important, and I can see it's better, therefore I'm in. And I think once someone's in, teams can do some cool stuff.
Yeah, the feelings you had when you set out to start Thank You versus the feeling in this idea that you're currently in, is there any similarities there?
Yeah, there is in a sense of scale. I think when we first started out, we were 19 years old, 21 years old. We had these huge global dreams. From day one, if you met us, we're like, this is global product for global consumers, going to make a global impact. Give us like 12 months. This thing will be everywhere. And then life kind of just got us, and when I say life, reality, true reality of starting anything. It was slower, it was harder, it was, to be honest, all important lessons that we wouldn't go back and skip. They were critical, that led to who we are today and how we even think and operate today. But I think the similarities back to 2008, 12 years ago, was that kind of bright-eyed ambition of, let's go. The difference now is after 12 years of learning a lot of things through failure and through pain I think it's better positioned us so that, yes, this is a call out, and yes, we are asking two of the biggest companies, of which we only need one of them. But you might have also seen the video, we sent the same invitation to 9 of their nearest competitors, because at the end of the day, we're not naive to kind of hope that someone has a goodwill moment and joins the movement. We hope that exists, but also, we've learned about competition and the power of it, and we need one of 11, to which has been a few weeks of very interesting Zoom calls, early morning, late at night, and it's kind of working. Now, we don't have a result yet, but I think we've learnt about big vision and ideas, but then also how do you apply them in ways that will actually equal an outcome, impact or dollars or growth or whatever it is you're aiming for.
So when you're going into one of these Zoom meetings, what's the first one? What are you expecting? What does success look like on meeting number one?
Look, I think success is the partner that we're meeting, or potential partner that we're meeting, seeing what we see. I have no doubt at what they may be thinking, watching the campaign go down and thinking, man, who are these kids? And they're just trying to bully us in the public. And I can think of all the things that they're thinking. Well, at least a few of them. But the hope is that they walk away seeing what this truly is, and it's a really unique moment in history, and they see the logic behind why we've done it the way we've done it. And I hope they can actually see it's the only way it could work at a time like this. And then I hope they walk away genuinely, considering what this partnership could be, and not too caught up on maybe the campaign that has been.
You mentioned charitable donations are down of current times. I feel like that seems bizarre. I mean, I'm not in the world in that space like you are, really consuming all those numbers. I think about the empathetic and sort of the causes people are getting behind, and visually you're seeing through social media. In my mind, it would seem to go the other way. Do you know the reasons as to why people aren't getting behind these charities like they may have used to?
I think anytime uncertainty is introduced to humans, we all freeze up, and some for longer than others. So I think the economic kind of flow-on effect from the pandemic to Australia, to the US, UK, everywhere, I think that is people starting to wonder, what does the future look like? When's this all going to go back to normal? I think a younger generation just woke up to the fact that you should probably have 6 months to a year's money in the bank. That's something that our parents' generation are like, it's a non-negotiable, whereas the younger generation's like, but credit cards, and now people are going to wake up to the world can stop without any notice for quite a long time. And I think so that we're going to see a change in consumer behavior, certainly in giving. And giving is often the first thing to stop when economic uncertainty kicks in. And obviously our lens is through extreme poverty. But, there are charities like, Oxfam's very well known globally. They've pulled out of 18 countries, dropped, I think, 1,400 staff. Charities are pulling out of countries. They can't fund them, where the data is basically saying that upwards of 100 million people will go back into extreme poverty off the back of the economic crisis. Bill and Melinda Gates just released a study that's real, so it's not a prediction, but to date, 37 million people have gone back in to what's known as less than $1.90 a day. So it's like, and governments are pulling out funding from aid and development and putting into like a pandemic or COVID response, which it's short-term responsible, but it's leaving the world's poor. Some are saying 1, others are saying 2 decades. We're about to go back 2 decades in all of the work we collectively did. So like in a thank you context, we sit here going, man, the world is not in a great spot. Everyone knows that, but I'll be honest, just plugging my power in because my computer's not in a great spot. But like, this is not in our news feed. I'm not turning on the news. I'm not getting a lot about what's happening in developing nations. I'm getting a lot about what's happening here in Melbourne,
and did
Australia.
Did Dan Andrews actually botch the whole quarantine? That's what.
Totally.
That's all the news is.
that and a Trump tweet. That's sort of everything.
How have you changed as a person due to the pandemic?
I feel like the change started, if we go back to New Zealand, and then even just before the pandemic at Thank You, we went through our own little crisis. We had a whole bunch of supply chain issues, and, a customer put in a claim for a huge amount of money that they said we owed them, and we're like, we don't owe them that. And then we checked, we did. An accounting error. Wasn't huge, but we missed it, and it added up over time. And so in February, we were in our own mini crisis. And I think straight away for Justine and I, we went straight down to values, right? Straight back to like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? And we were looking down the barrel of Thank You's by far worst financial year ever. We were looking off the edge of a cliff that was scary. But what I love about vision, mission, and a united team is you'll do whatever it takes to get it done. And so we got through that issue.
That helps as well.
Well, JobKeeper helps. Now, I thought, when JobKeeper first was announced, I'm like, we're going to need that to even stay afloat. But then our team worked with suppliers and customers. We ended up literally making 12 years profit in a few months, and we didn't register for JobKeeper.
How does the supply work for that? Because I was thinking about that, like the huge increase. Do you just turn on a tap, like because you've got the supply chain around hand sanitizer and all that sort of thing? Do you get first dibs from a factory perspective, where you're like, okay, guys, yeah, just triple our order? How does that work?
We would love to have thought it would work like that. And so when sales went up, we said to our suppliers, we need more product, and we couldn't get it.
Yeah.
In fact, supply chain fell apart locally and globally in many parts. There was I think in March, we were at 50% of our normal sales production. So we were in dire straits. And obviously everyone's needing sanitizer. We couldn't make it. But I would put credit down to a team that, one of our values we talk about is solutions focused, and we found new suppliers in new countries and new supplier channels, and we moved mountains and processes that would be 6 months. We pushed them out in a couple of days. We found ways, and if it honestly could have been a movie over that month, like stuff that happened, and it was nuts, but we got through it, and
nuts in a good way, like the stress being nuts. Good, yeah, good nuts. Well, cashews
good,
or macadamia.
Yeah, like a good macadamia.
Salty cashew, I reckon.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
but I think, so what I mean by nuts is like we sold more product and made it and distributed it at a time when local and global supply chains were falling apart, but through finding good partners, through very unconventional ways, through taking some risk. We took risk. Yeah. We took some pretty significant risks. We felt they were measured. Some people would be like, that's big risk, but it was. But then also the biggest profit to impact we've ever made. And yeah.
I mean, they're probably the people that are asking, what if it doesn't work? Same people. In terms of that, you living and breathing an experience, you're in the trenches of seeing your profits, grow so rapidly. What are the learnings from that? Because from the outside, I don't think I even can fathom that as a business and as a person. So what unique perspective on the situation has that given you?
Yeah, I think with great upside, there comes an even greater responsibility. I think that we sat back going, this is incredible. At the same time, I watched friends' businesses falling off cliffs and other great organizations that were like, man, what do you mean Virgin Australia's going into, like, what? Like we saw these establishments just collapsing and changing. Meanwhile, we are going through the best growth ever. And I mean, it's not just us. The sanitizer thing was like a gold rush. I think we said in the video, it was like, and we saw the best and worst of humanity in that gold rush. Special mention to some people we won't mention, but like, it's just like people, when money is on the table, people go all in. But then there's some good too. And we saw a lot of that. I think the thank you context is we sat back going, this is incredible. And look, we could have gone, let's just keep the balance sheet strong. We'll give a bit. Let's ride out this pandemic. On the other side of it, we'll get bold then. But I think for us, every single day as the dollars went up and the world's falling apart, we felt this sense of responsibility that we need to go all in. And that's what No Small Plan is. So my perspective, and I think Justine's, we just felt a sense of responsibility that when you have something that works at a time the world needs it, let's not block it. Let's not block it going further.
I remember you talking about some of the challenges of social enterprises around Thank You having to create a phenomenal product to stand out because of sort of the brand perception of something that's, social enterprise. How do you create a social enterprise that retains really amazing people? Obviously, there's the side of it, which is you're doing good. But what's your perspective on things like salaries within the social enterprise sector, and how can we encourage the best people to come and work at companies like Thank You?
Big topic, important one, because I think that to make social enterprise work, I genuinely think we almost have to remove social for a moment, think enterprise, and just go, right. So Thank You, we've got these 2 rules on our website. Rule 1, make great product. Rule 2, never break Rule 1. And we have an asterisk on Rule 2 that says never use a good cause to sell an average product. Now, we got these rules from a great book called Do Purpose, Why Brands with Purpose Matter, I think. Anyway, Do Purpose is the title. But these rules, like to make good product, you need good people, and you need good retention, and you need good culture, and all of the things. And I think one of the great challenges with social, charity in particular, but then anything social, is we think, well, because of the cause, people should do it for less money. In fact, if they need to get paid well, they're in it for the wrong reasons. And some of this stuff, sort of, when you filter it through, some people have really screwed it up for everyone by stealing money, by absolute charity rorts, and that sucks. So when you filter it through that, the logic's there. Mm-hmm. But when you filter it through, how do we live in a world in 2020 where we're all happy to pay someone at Instagram or Facebook, a developer, a very, very, very handsome salary to make the app more addictive so that we're more addicted? How are we comfortable with that? And then we're not comfortable to pay that same amount to someone who might be trying to solve the complexities of extreme poverty or a social issue. So as a society, we're okay with that. We're not okay with this. And we face this every day. I had an interesting exchange with a Netherlands journalist, who was having a good rip into us. And I just thought, this is so ironic, because he's from a publication that publishes the top 100 rich list, mm-hmm. and the cars, the boats, the houses, and they are front page. We get sort of the back page. Are they really in it for the right reasons? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, classic, but this is how we are as a society, and it has to change.
How does it change, do you think? Is there ways, and where does Australia fit, do you think, in regards to dealing with this?
Look, I think that Australia is doing well in social enterprise. We have some really strong examples here. I used to think we were 10 years behind the UK. Head of social enterprise in the UK is like, you guys are not 10 years behind. It's amazing. So I think we're doing well. I think that we just need to keep pushing the boundaries and pushing the boundaries of social enterprise. And I think we'll continue to do that at Thank You, because we are really interested in really good talent, making really good products and campaigns to make a bigger social impact. And yes, we'll never be the highest paid at Thank You compared to corporate, but we don't want to be too far off it. And there are some measures in that. We base off the kind of the 25th percentile, which is the lowest. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about that long term. I kind of wonder, is that really the model? It's certainly today, but I think we should keep pushing it, because, good people make good products, and mm-hmm. that's what we need.
No small plan.
The timing. How's the timing of all of this? I mean, you mentioned that it was next year that you were thinking about it. And I mean, are you the type to look and go, wow, this is serendipitous, this is all meant to be?
I am. I am. I think, Justin and I personally, faith has played a big part of our story. And we do think that we're doing this for something bigger than us and more important than us. And the timing of this, it does feel like that. It feels like maybe this is meant to be. I mean, there are some days we wake up and we're like, was this even meant to be? Are we even meant to be doing this? Do you know what I mean? You wrestle. You wrestle.
When you're in New Zealand, suffering a bit of pain internally, do you think that too? Are you thinking this was meant to be? This is a part of the journey that we have to go through?
Yeah, our reflection on it is that, this whole concept of the wilderness, and kind of, you look at the greatest stories ever written, leaders, of old, you think of, not that we're trying to compare it all, but, Mandela is locked up in prison. Like you look at these sort of histories of people, and, it's inspiring when you hear the story, because you're like, man, you went on a long down before that up. Do you know what I mean? It was like Mother Teresa, yeah, but cool. Look at Mother Teresa's whole life story. It's it's epic, but there's a lot of that before there's that. And I think the valley is not often talked about. It's not heroed enough. We all talk about the mountaintop moments and look at them, they did this or won that or achieved that. But most great stories are here. And so I think for Justine and I, we ended up going, oh, we're here. And that helped us, because we're definitely not there, but we're here. Let's go on that journey and be okay with that.
You hear about founders or CEOs and how it can be lonely in those roles. Have you felt lonely through the process?
Yes. I definitely am grateful for co-founder, and not just founder. I think a founder is credit to them. That may be an even lonelier journey than the one I walked. Having co-founders Justine, Jared finished up about 2 years ago, and walked with him for 10 years in this. That was really helpful because you're encouraging each other. The amount of times I've quit or Justine's quit, but then it wasn't on the same day, so we kind of got each other back.
Wasn't on paper.
Exactly,
Just mate, I'm out.
Does email count? There's been a couple of email exchanges, but no one needs to know about that. But I think
a bit weird emailing your wife that you're quitting, to be honest.
Well, you
got to put it
sometimes you got to put it somewhere, man. It's got to be a paper trail for the lawyers. I think I would just say we don't do it alone. That would be my message to everyone, because I think it is lonely, but we have to reach out, and you have to get help and get support, because point leading anything, it is the loneliest job in the world, they say.
Yeah, it's so exciting what you're doing. And can I also say you've got some of the best hair in the business as well. I've been following your hair journey, and I think the curls are a great. I think that you're really repping it in a massive way.
What product are you using?
What do you got?
Deep dive.
I can't give away the secrets, but I can tell you one thing. To any kid out there who thinks at the age of 17 or 16, I'll start straightening my hair and no one needs to know about my curls. Like if that's you, stop. Don't try and hide it, because at 29, when it all came out, my son had curly hair.
This is chapter 2. You're giving us what chapter 2 is going to be. This.
Yeah. So just be you. Be you.
Awesome. Well, good luck. And so for people that want to support No Small Plan, obviously you're in the sort of final stages in some regards in having the meetings, but is there other ways that people can help out?
Yeah, look, I'd say over the next couple of weeks, if people haven't seen the video, watch it, share it. The more awareness, the better, because when the product has a partner, we're going to need to roll it out. And so that's where, thank you works off people and people telling people. So I'd say right now that's a big call to action. We are 3 weeks out from announcing who's in. We have booked one of the largest digital billboards in the world. It's found in Times Square, New York City. It's not small. I think it's the size of an American football field. The founder loves our story, and he's like, so we've got a discounted rate, but we're sitting there going, hope it's not empty. You know what I mean? Like that's awkward. So look, follow the journey, get the popcorn out, and either way, it's going to be a case study. I think the good thing about thank you, someone's like, but what if this fails? I'm like, how we work at thank you is it can't fail. Mm-hmm. And that's as in, even if everything didn't go to our plan, we're going to learn from it, pivot, and then it'll work, and we'll find a way to make it work. And so, come on the journey with us.
It's so
Love
exciting.
It, man.
Congratulations.
It is so exciting.
It's really awesome.
Great. Thank you for the interview, and I'm just glad we got black shirts matching today.
Exactly.
Such a good call.
It's a daily talk show. Make sure you check out No Small Plan at Thank You's website. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Have a good one.
See you guys.